Are you ready to stop the self-sabotage and create the life you desire? Well, in order for that to happen, you need to break free from the bad beliefs that are holding your success hostage. You need to optimize the stress by turning it into extra energy for success. And those hurtful habits? Well, we need to give that pain a purpose for progress. Welcome to Stop the Self-Sabotage and Create the Life You Desire podcast. So I have a question for everyone that's joining us today. What would you do in this scenario? You just won the gift, a very large gift of money. And you also know what it's like to do and go without. You have a family member that has gone without. That family member is also an asshole. How much do you give to them? Because this happened to one of my clients here recently. Now, that's what's known as an extrinsic gift. Let's talk about intrinsic gifts, internal gifts. Let's say you have the internal gift of seeing others, their potential, their brilliance, and what it is that they can achieve. But you have a friend that tells you, don't use that in the situation you're getting ready to go into because it will get you hurt. What do you do? Do you protect yourself then? By the way, that just happened to me recently, getting back out into the dating world and having a friend going, don't you be seeing all that potential in those dates. So what do you do with your gifts, both internally and externally, when the world either tells you give it all away or lock it up so it can't be taken away? But either way leads to painful problems and holds you back from your progress. Welcome to today, where we are discussing how to make peace with your prosperity. And I have some amazing certified hypnotists that are here to assist you with this today. So, Angie, let's start with you. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Angie Monco, and I'm the owner of Harmony Harbor Coaching since 2008. And I work with intuitive women leaders to help them reparent themselves and really become a force for good in the world. So your question's about prosperity. And I came into a lot of money, and would I give some of this money away to this asshole relative? Is that the question?
So hold that thought for a moment, because we're going to go to Eric. But yes, we're going to discuss, what do you do when you got a gift? Do you share it with others, even though they are not deserving?
Okay.
Eric.
Hi, my name is Eric Banks. I'm a certified hypnotist and a practicing NLP person. I am reached at Image Relations LLC, and I'm happy to be here today.
We're thrilled that you're here also. Preeti.
Hi, I'm Preeti Matu, and I'm the founder of Well Adorned. And I am a certified hypnotist and a life wellness coach. And I support women in midlife who are experiencing burnout and all the things that come with that. And I'm a guide to help them find a happier, healthier, more balanced, sensually alive part of themselves that often goes with the burnout. So really happy to be here. Thank you.
Oh, we're thrilled that you've joined us. And if this is your first time coming into the podcast, I'm Dawn. Stop the self-sabotage, discover what you really want, and create the life you desire, assisting you and going from wounded to wealth. Okay, let's get right into our question. You have just received a large gift of money. You also know, all of us Why is the reason why we got into the industry we're in. We understand the pain of others because we've experienced it ourselves. So you know what it's like to go without. You've got somebody in that situation, but they're a jerk. They're an asshole. There's a reason why they're in that situation. Do you share what you have with them? And there are no right or wrong answers. This comes from our identity of wholeness. So we're just giving the audience different perspectives. All right, Angie, what would you do?
I would not share it. No. I would probably invest part of it, off the top, donate part of it. And then I would just see where my energy felt called to I would try to do good with it. And I'd create a resting tree sanctuary on some property that my mom has in Illinois.
Nice.
But I would not funnel it or siphon it to someone who I don't think would be a good steward of it,
Interesting what you said about being a good steward.
I wouldn't feel obligated like that. That would be people pleasing. If it got more complicated, let's say it was my brother who was an asshole and he's not.
Just to clarify that.
Somebody that was really close to me and they were like going to go homeless or something like that. Like if we raised the stakes a little bit, I still don't think that I would. I don't like to enable. That there's some sort of saying about, you want to teach a person how to fish, not to just keep taking the fish, So if they would learn something, if I felt like there was any humility or ownership on their part, but if they just have a crappy attitude, like you said, there's a reason they have that attitude. So I wouldn't.
Okay. Eric, what would you do?
I would share. I didn't get it by working. It was mammoth from heaven, so to speak. So I would share it. How much I would share would depend on how much I received and the need of the person. And as I was thinking through my answer, I would probably share it without a lecture and then just sit back and wait for the person to come back a second time, as they invariably do. And then they would get the lecture, which is, I am providing you with this amount now, but don't come back again because the answer is going to be no.
Okay. I like that. The second time you're going to get the lecture. Okay. And now I know that even with a little bit of a voice challenge, here she is.
Yeah, thank you. I've been muting it, so when I do have the challenge, we don't all have to hear it. It's interesting. I can totally see both sides, like Angie and Eric's. And I think I'm somewhere in the middle. I would definitely give, but really have to do some inner work on myself to give without any strings attached or expectations, because I think that's the hardest part, where can you truly give with zero expectations? And I think prosperity is often, this is a very material prosperity example with money, but it's often an inside job, with how can we feel the non-material part of that. Living in prosperity can actually be in a spiritual context, giving without expectation to receive, despite who that person is. And maybe this is a very woo-woo example, a little too esoteric and out there, but I want to believe that I would bring my highest self forward and be like, maybe whatever this person is, hopefully they can change or have a little kindness go a long way. And, I'm not going to continue to give if I see there is no pivot or shift, but I also want to believe that I can give and then remove myself from it, assuming they're in need.
Yeah. And when we come into money, people are always in need.
Yes.
Show up family members you didn't even know you had. Okay. So what's interesting is each one of these comes from a different part of our personality. So if we were to take a look at 4 different categories, where we're wounded, which is the younger child, where we're healing, and to heal, we need to remove the younger child from being triggered and actually put in our wise woman and wise man. When we are healed, and it's our wise woman and or wise man and the child now working in partnership together, or where we are susceptible, where we can easily be triggered to go back to the original wound. That's 4 different categories. So we've got 3 of those categories represented, as far as the wise woman going, no, you're not a steward. I'm not going to give it to you. And then we have, let me give because it's who I am. Well, we can see that, but if you don't do it the right way, now there's going to be a conversation. We can see that coming from being susceptible. Or we can say, can I give and remove myself from the situation? We could actually see the wise woman and the inner child working together. Here's the challenge. Nobody addressed the child. Because, see, the child was taught give at the expense of themselves. That's what wounded all of us to start with. All of us have wounds, all of us. And we had an authority figure come along and say, the only way you can get what it is that you need is by doing what I'm telling you you need to do. So what we learned is that we should give love. But if someone does not value that love to start with, giving them more will never make us lovable.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to look at the reciprocity of a value exchange. Everywhere you go, you give the best parts of you. But how much that other person should get is not dependent upon you. It is dependent upon them.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I were to say, hey, would you give this money to someone if they were a known drug addict? Then we'd be going, well, wait. And even what if they're a drug addict and they're homeless? Would you give them the money? That's the difference between enabling and empowering. So to make peace with our prosperity, the true meaning of peace means nothing missing, nothing broken. We have to address all parts of our personality. The wounded child, the wise woman or wise man that's healing, now how those two come together as a team, but then also look at where we're susceptible for that original wound. Because that will come up. When we tell no to someone, or if we say yes to someone, but then they use it inappropriate, we are going to have the fog of fear that shows back up. So we need to be prepared for that fog of fear to say, no matter what I choose, it's going to be out of the familiar because this was a gift. And gifts, we're not used to using them. So all of you are correct. It's just what aspect of the identity are you coming from? And is it one that is in integrity with the situation and the other person? This is the reason why I love working with you guys.
What would you do, Dawn?
What would I do? I would look at how the other person would receive the gift. And if they're going to receive it in a way that is going to create harm, there's a difference between hurt and harm. And if it's going to create harm, I would be more than happy to give that gift to another nonprofit in their name.
Hmm.
Now, keep in mind, I'm also the one that had a very close family member using drugs in my household. And when I found out, I had to throw them out on the street, literally throw them out on the street. They had no car, no money. And as they were walking away from me, they were saying, you do know what this means as far as if I'm going to survive or not. And I had to say, yes, I do know what it means, but we've already had those conversations. And now you're taking ownership. That is typically an experience most people do not have to go through.
Mm-hmm.
So it taught me to have a conversation first and let them know that this is what's coming. Does that make sense?
I mean, you gave them a heads up
Mm-hmm.
of their consequence if they
Yeah,
continue.
it's drawing boundaries. You cannot have a boundary if there are not consequences. Most people do relationship bargaining where they know the consequences in their head, they never verbalize them, and then they're the ones who wind up paying them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would do, is I would have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Like you need more details, to
Yeah.
find-
So, yeah, I would be, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm not quite sure, but this is what I would like to experience from you. There has to be reciprocity. There has to be ownership. Okay. Now, the next question was, what if you're told that something about you that it's absolutely one of your gifts, not to use it because it might get you hurt? What do you say? Jump in, guys.
I'm laughing because I feel that our greatest gifts can also be like our greatest vulnerabilities sometimes, For example, I am a nurturer by nature. In fact, much of my branding around my business is I nurture the nurturers. And truth of the matter is I can give and give and give until there's not much left.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just making me laugh as you ask that, because I'm like, all right, there's so many of these. All my superpowers are actually those are the things I've had to get really careful or with boundaries around,
So boundaries.
Yeah. Boundaries are what come forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anybody else? If
It's
you
funny that you would use that term, because I tell people that my strength is my weakness. My superpower is my kryptonite. So there's a duality in those circumstances.
Mm-hmm. And so, Angie, what do you think?
So someone's telling me that I shouldn't use my gift because
It's going to get me hurt.
it's going to get me hurt.
Uh-huh.
Like, I mean, I just think it's, I don't know, kind of ridiculous. like, I'm sorry, but if it's my gift, I guess the right people who resonate with me and feel safe with me, then I'm not going to do that. Like that feels like self-betrayal,
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm sure I self-betray myself in some ways, but if I know I have a gift, it's like coaching. I mean, if someone said, well, Angie, just go, give it up, go get a job, like I would, my mom, she hasn't said that in so many words, but like in the very beginning, she would say, well, Angie, why are you leaving your corporate job, your accounting job? You've had it for 20 years. Like, why would you want to do that? And I'm like, well, because I love what I do.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You'd love to coach. What if someone is asking you for coaching, but they're wanting to get it from you for free?
Well, I give discovery sessions, you know, to
Mhm.
see if we're a good fit, if I can help them and so forth. So in a sense, that's free.
Mhm.
But I try to even weed that out, you know, if
Mhm.
possible, because what I've realized is that people are either ready to change and do something or they're not, you know, and
Right.
they're not, like, I don't want to put myself in a situation where I will feel resentful.
Oh, okay.
It's just setting me up for failure and for them too. Like, it's not any good for either party.
So
So
we've got boundaries. We've got our strength is actually our greatest weakness. And we've got, oh, look out when resentment shows up. That's letting you know something, right?
it's people pleasing.
Yes.
The theme.
I
Pleasing him,
sh-
right? It shows
Yeah.
up all the time.
Right.
So I went to my mentor with it because I'm like, wow, you know, I do see the best in people. What am I supposed to do? And my mentor says, instead of holding yourself back, how about doing it even more? I'm like, wait, what? Really? And he's like, yeah, do it even more. Start using your gift brighter. Health and unhealth cannot be in the same relationship. People will either want you to dim down to their level or you can ask them to step up to yours. Here's the challenge. We confuse the gift with the process of giving. I take my gift with me everywhere, seeing the best in everybody. But there is a process that I need to go through. What do I value? What motivates me to do that? And I need to look at going back to the example. Is it the younger me thinking if I do this enough, if I give enough of me, finally they'll see me lovable? Uh-oh. Because when you do that, you're coming from a wounded side of you, which means even if the person in the relationship with you is healthy, you're going to trigger their own dysfunctions.
Mhm.
You will overgive, they will overtake. So I need to look at what part of me is valuing this, what motivates me to give this, and then the reciprocity of are they a good steward with it? And all of that takes boundaries.
Mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
So yeah, y'all right. Because this is the part of us that if we give based on not just who we are, but having to earn something. So we do this on the podcast to earn the right to be in someone's life because the law of reciprocity says if they want to be in our life, they have to invest in themselves. So we're not giving just to get a dysfunctional need. We're giving to trigger them at their healthiest. That they have to say yes to who they really are. But if we're giving to get an unmet need from our younger self that has been withering away, then we will go into the fog of fear and it will be really hard for us to see our way out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So what about this comment? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. What would you say to someone when they're experiencing the situation that they're in right now that is less than ideal, but yet they're afraid to move forward? Because we're talking about peace.
I believe that there's a continuum that has to be explored. And sometimes the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know. However, if everybody operated on that principle all the time, there would be no progress. So we have to know when to get outside of our comfort level and when to stay in it.
Mm. And how do you know, Eric, for your clients or maybe yourself, how do you know what's a little bit of insight to the process of should I move forward or not?
Oh, it depends on if I've been burned before. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't allow myself to be burned a second time, a third, or fourth, or fifth time. It does make me put the information through a different filter, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So looking at the failure that you've experienced in the past and say, how does this apply moving forward?
Yes. Thomas Edison said that he never fails, but he tried 99 times when things didn't work. And I think in hypnosis, we use the idea there is no failure, there's only successes and lessons.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm done with the lesson. I want the grade. Yes, you are so correct. Anybody else? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
It's interesting. I think as a coach, and often why we go into this line of work is because we are so highly sensitive and empathic and intuitive in many ways. And I couldn't agree more that it's better to know what you are dealing with than be blindsided. But I think there's something about trusting without being completely unaware, but trusting that inner voice that, we have to have some trust in others, whether it is a intuitive process, whether it is I think the whole human journey, if we stopped progressing, as Eric said, because that's what will happen if we start not having trust as we move through life. But I do think that for me personally, it's often the resilience. Things are going to happen. People aren't going to show up in the way that you hope they are. But there's also a process of, how quickly do you pivot and continue to move forward knowing what you know? And also not judging them for that, if that resonates a little.
Yes.
I deeply trust, and that comes from me grounding, being rooted, meditating. There are just certain practices I have that help me almost fine tune that antenna of intuition. That doesn't mean I don't do all the other things, which is go based on history that I've had with the person or how they've shown up for others or, the track record. But also believing that people can potentially show up a different way. And each moment is an opportunity for that. And that's growth. So the resilience component, the intuitive component as us, as humans going through our journey in life and interacting with others, but also trust. We have to move forward with some sense of belief system that, not everyone's out to get us.
And you've got a good point there, bringing up the trust, because there's 5 levels of trust. And the first level is, do they know us? And the second level is, do they get us? And then the third level is, what's their character? And the fourth level is, do they have a track record? And the fifth level is, now are we going to work together? So the devil you know is better than the devil you don't, as far as, well, I know what I can expect from this person, place, or thing, that maybe I don't have trust with them right now. I just have rapport. What level the situation I'm getting ready to move into, what level of trust has it or they earned? And that's the level I'm going to invest at. I'll create space for them to step into the next one. But yeah, so where Eric is right, you need to know what you're moving into. Preeti is also right as far as, well, what are we moving into? It's the next level of trust. What about you, Angie?
I think that, most everybody on the planet is gonna want to be in their comfort zone at some, at most times of our life. We want that comfort zone, and that's normal.
It is.
But without pushing ourselves outside of it, there's no growth, there's no progress. And so I don't know, the way I was wired or designed or whatever, like I value that transformation process, and I value asking questions and being curious about things. And I've stayed in my comfort zone and still do in some areas of my life. So I think it depends on what areas, that we want to transform. What are we ready? Like if we could package readiness, we'd be trillionaires. I wish I could package readiness and sell that. But it's just kind of a slippery slope, I guess, in some ways, because you never know where someone is along that continuum of being ready. And sometimes they'll never be ready. It depends on the topic. So I don't think I think it's a good thing to say it's not about judgment. It's not about being on a pedestal, of, hey, well, you should be further along. We can tell ourselves that we should be further along than we are. And that's just, to me, the whole notion of the devil is better than the devil you don't. That's a fear-based reaction. It's an ego reaction that the ego doesn't want us to change. It's a saboteur reaction, but yet it's a normal reaction because we're human.
So let's take that into the next question then, Angie. We all have areas of our life where we know we can do better and we're not taking the action. What would you say to that person? Because they are staying in their comfort zone. I've always called it the familiar zone, because there's nothing comfortable about being stuck and struggling, but yet we'll go back to it. So what would you say to someone who is in that space, in that place, and not moving forward? They're like, I know everything I should be doing. I'm just not doing it. What would you say to them? Probably
the first thing, do you want to move out of that? Is that a desire that you really have? And figure out, because I think getting a felt sense of why do we really want something is so important. Because if we don't have that, if we don't have some sort of image in our mind or this felt sense of why I have that desire, what's it really going to give me if I move forward, then it's not going to come to fruition. So number one is, what do you really want that? First one. So that's where I'd start. And then number two, do you feel that you are capable of doing that? Do you feel you're capable of fill in the blank, whatever you're trying to attain? And lastly, do you feel worthy and deserving of what you're wanting to attain? And if we don't have all three of those checked, then we're not going to attain it. Right. And there's some sort of part of us that's telling us that we don't deserve it. We're not capable. Or do we really want it? Like, we're not really clear. There's confusion there. The fog of fear. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a matter of those three things, I believe. And that's why we stay stuck. And again, no judgment. It's just where we're at. What about you, Eric?
Oh, I agree. It's a push-pull type of relationship. Sometimes you give in, sometimes you hold firm, and it's situational dependent. So I'm making the stuff up as I go along.
Preeti, what do you have to say?
Yeah, I mean, I get a lot of people that are stuck. it's kind of like the space we're in. How do we get someone unstuck? I think the big question, I like that Angie like asked that question, which was, what is the fear behind it, behind the movement? But there's something that is providing safety in that stuckness. So to really understand like what is it when you're stuck that feels so safe, and to kind of illuminate that even though there's this false sense of safety, there's no momentum forward, which, which is the growth aspect, which is if we don't grow, we know what happens. We die. So, how long can you stay stuck? And how is it serving you is the question. And, really to get clear on what the goal is. Where are you trying to go? Because this stuck state is not serving you or anyone else around you, and you're not living your fullest potential. So like, these are kind of the invitations when I find I'm speaking to someone who is stuck, and to get them unstuck, is really the invitation around like why, and providing cheerleading and accountability into, what is the process to get you out of there? Sometimes you just need to climb out of that hole you're in. But you need someone to throw a hand down or rope and pull you out.
Yes. Hand up, not a hand out.
Yeah. No hand
out. Yes, because addressing what we go through, it's known as hypervigilance and hypovigilance. And it is not how we're stuck. It's that we're conflicted. There's one part of us that wants to stay safe, and there's another part of us that wants to grow. But when we did it in the past, we actually were wounded because somebody used it for their benefit.
What's the difference between the hyper and hypovigilance?
So I believe it is, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe that the hypovigilance is when you are doing what you feel like someone else needs to have happen for them to be okay. So let's go back to the very beginning. Would you give money to the family member? Okay. So what do they need to do to be okay? But then it doesn't work out. And then we become hypervigilant. So hypo makes it about others. That's how we were all wounded. Loss of self, sacrificed for someone else. And we had to make it all about them and focusing on them and what do they need. But you can't maintain that state. It's a high consuming of resource state. And at some point you get exhausted. And now we get hypervigilant internally of getting situationally sad. And we feel like we can't move. And it is a very low energy state. We're very vigilant with our ruminating thoughts, going over again and again. And so we've gone from external to internal until the energy builds back up. And then we put it into someone else again. And I equate it to having the gas pedal on the car pushed all the way to the floor while the brake is jammed on at the same time. So you want to go, go, go. You're revved up, and yet nothing is happening.
Okay.
And this actually sets up a fog of fear, the exhaustion through these resources externally as well as internally. And it's all because of the process. Our brain is constantly looking to predict the future. That is incorrect. Our subconscious is looking to predict the future, not the brain. Subconscious is found in every cell in our body, which is what we work with in hypnosis, right? So it is constantly looking to predict the future, but based on past pain, which is the reason why I shared this example not too long ago. If you go into the dentist and it has not been a pleasant experience in the past, and you go in and you see their tray of tools sitting there, you are going to have more pain in that session than if you didn't see those tools, because the brain is predicting based on what it sees that it's going to be more uncomfortable than the past.
Mhm.
So that's the devil we know is better than the devil we don't. Stay where we're at, because it's really going to hurt, but then it's going to hurt even more because of how we're using these resources in a way that never gets us where we are. So stuck, struggling, blocked, I like to say it's conflicted. There's a part of you that wants to move forward into growth, but you tried that in the past and it actually hurt. And there's a part of you that wants to stay safe, but that familiar zone is getting smaller and smaller until it feels like it's a noose around your neck. So
It's like a conscious conflict.
And a lot of times we don't even know that it's conscious. If we've been through any type of trauma, we can experience flashbacks where we don't even know mentally what we're flashing back over, but the body always remembers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're in a situation where we're either eating too much, shopping too much, bitching, moaning, whining, and complaining too much, because we don't know how to handle the buildup internally of what's happening. And so we can go into a flashback that tries to protect us, but it's based on the pain that we've had in the past, not what's actually going on in the present. And this is what's great about hypnosis, is that we can use this process to begin to relieve the pressure and then actually begin to resolve the conflict between the aspects of who we are. Put them together in partnership. That's what it means to be healed. So based on everything that we've talked about today, I'd like to hear from y'all. What is one thing right now that you can give her as she's listening to us going, oh my gosh, they're describing who I am right now. What is one thing that you can give her that is going to get her some relief? It's not going to get her resolution, but it's going to get her some relief. So jump in, guys.
Living in the present. Am I all right now? Not worrying about the past, not worrying about the future, dealing with the issue at hand. And 99 times out of 100, when we ask ourselves that question, the answer is yes.
What other tips do you guys have?
I think a great place to start is a great question to ourselves, to really invite curiosity. And Preeti, you mentioned this when you mentioned about asking that question, how does it serve me? Because I am sometimes amazed when I'll ask someone that, well, how does this serve you? Almost 99% of the time, the first immediate response is, do you have any idea? Oh, it doesn't. Like, oh, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so I would just say that ask yourself that question, but give yourself some space to really have time to really sit down with yourself, light a candle, do some breathing, get in touch with the body, feeling grounded, and then ask yourself that question, how does it serve me to stay in this space? Because it does, and it's significant, and it often revolves around safety. But how is it keeping me safe from what? Safe from what? What am I really afraid of? And is that really the truth? So questions like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, I'm just going to take that just a little further, right? Because it's just this beautiful, segue from Eric to Angie. And I'll just say, I think so much of the presence is of utmost importance. I think the embodiment piece of getting into your body, I know we're in the mind space with hypnosis, but there is that connection, really slowing it down. And then also these big questions are such a doorway into so much information. What is the narrative that I'm creating by staying safe and stuck? Is this really going to yield the results that I want and live in an optimal way and really be the best version of myself? Or is this just going to continue the narrative I've told myself that I can't? And I won't, and I shouldn't. And all those other negative things. So I think really the presence is the first piece, like Eric said, and getting really slow and embodied and connected. And then, the big questions, those are really a great way to kind of step through the door to where you want to arrive.
And now I'm going to build on what you guys said that I would suggest when you find yourself in this space, in this place, and the energy is really beginning to build, we need to take the edge off of it that feels like it can fry you out. And I would suggest walking around your space, your place, and touching things and naming them. Now, if you have the ability, you can touch things and name them and then say why they're valuable to you. So this is my dining room table. And the reason why it's valuable to me, I picked it out because it has the ability to hold me and my friends. And this is the couch. And this is the reason why it's valuable to me is because it's a comfortable place for me to snuggle in at the end of the night and watch my favorite shows. So begin to do the mind-body connection because there is something that connects the mind-body, and that is our relationships with the world around us. So get yourself first in the present moment by touching things, naming them, and then naming the value behind them. That'll begin to take the edge off. And then the questions that we want to ask ourselves, which everybody shared, are absolutely amazing. Also know that you need someone to hear the answer to those questions in a way that will not rewound you. And going to your friends and your family members is probably not the best idea because they're going to want to give you advice or they've already heard this story before. So remember, you cannot have healthy and unhealthy in the same experience unless one person knows how to give you the hand up. And so that's when I recommend you reach out to anyone that was here today and ask them maybe that complimentary coaching session to where you can tell your story without being rewounded, but also hear what's on the other side of that story. So, Angie, what's your contact information if they want to reach out to you for to be able to have that storytelling time?
Sure. It's Harmony Harbor, HARBOR.com. And it's Angie at harmonyharbor.com. My phone number is 1-314-422-6520. Can I give a shout out of what I have coming up? That tomorrow night is a free monthly healing circle that's on Zoom. And you'll see this when you go to my website, harmonyharbor.com, under events. So it's a monthly free event that I have, in which I do give healing codes. It's another healing modality. And then in 1 week from tomorrow, I'm offering mental fitness for intuitive women leaders, in which I help women get grounded, stop those saboteur voices, and get grounded through a specific technique called positive intelligence. So that's starting April 11th.
Okay.
Yep.
Eric, if they want to reach out to you, how did they connect with you?
They can Google Image Relations LLC, or they can give me a call at 314-583-7075.
BD, what are we doing?
Hi. So you can email me at preeti at welladorned, welladorned.life. And I have complimentary consults there. And you can also call me at 516 area code 637-3203. That's it.
All right. And I'm going to share, if you go to my website, dawnlandrum.com, you'll see how you can claim your complimentary coaching call, or text me 1-636-699-7791 and say you want a W2W call. That's Wounded to Wealth call. All right. So remember that to make peace with your prosperity, peace says nothing missing, nothing broken. To make peace, you need to pull together all parts of you to where you start operating in a whole way, from a holy perspective, which is the highest parts of you available. But in order to do that, you need to have not just the gifts of who you are, but the process that's going to lead you from pain into progress based on the vision of the life that you design and that you desire. So until we all get together again, we're here to say blessings on your journey. The world actually needs you at your very best.